Good afternoon, fellow students. Over the years, I've witnessed many pop culture influences that have shaped my perspective of how politics and culture walk hand in hand. But in retrospect of my American youth, a significant item at the time was the British invasion. And no, not King George and his Redcoat Army, but it was the British bands of the 60s and the 70s. The music of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Animals, the Who, Moody Blues, and Led Zeppelin are only a few that flooded American radio waves and TV screens, fueling that growing 1960s counterculture that was spreading across the country and weaving itself into America's social fabric and increasingly cultural descent of the Vietnam War. John Lennon's Give Peace a Chance and Imagine were readily embraced by Americans as anti war themes. The Animals' We Gotta Get Out of This Place was an anthem for our young troops slogging through the Vietnam jungles. And this cross pollination of British cultural text and American cultural text provided an outlet for the collective voice of American artists to drive the anti war message home through their songs. Among many were Pete Seeger's Bring 'em Home and Country Joe McDonald's Feel Like I'm Fixing to Die Rag or CCR's Fortunate Son, which messages the inequities of war, whereas rich men make war and poor men fight them. This was all before the all voluntary military established by the US government in 1973, and the existing unpopular draft further fueled the anti war movement, becoming a symbol of injustice. Additional American singer songwriters influenced by the British invasion and becoming prominent voices of dissent of the Vietnam War were Peter Palmieri, Joan Baez, Judy Collins, and Phil Ochs. And one of the songs of the era that really reverberated around the entire world was Ohio by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and written following the May 4th, 1970 event of the Ohio National Guard firing into a crowd of Kent State University demonstrators, killing four and wounding nine other students. A tragic event of American soldiers killing Americans on American soil. In view of current events and the prospect of more National Guard deployments to our cities, I'm having a serious case of deja vu right now, and I ask myself if the USA is moving from a too loose political culture to a too tight culture. Have we deviated from the balance of the Goldilocks principle? And are we leaning toward an authoritarian society? This also recalls a very unnerving event on a street corner in Isfahan, Iran. In 1978, when I was unexpectedly approached by a partially disabled individual on crutches, and he began to desperately bombard me in perfect English about how Savak, the Shah's secret police, had tortured him. I was obviously shocked. I didn't know how to react to this, and desperately looking for a way out, I simply ended up walking away as his cries faded in the distance. And that event has haunted me to this very day. My wife also lived through the Brazilian dictatorship, clearly recalling her father warning her to stay home when the troops were in the streets. And in 81, I recall my Brazilian direct reports advising me to take care with what I said in public. The political atmosphere at that time was now beginning to relax, but the collateral effects of political oppression were still present. So by 1966, TVs were present in 93% of American households, and the Vietnam conflict was the very first televised war, with unfiltered, disturbing images of battle, wounded American soldiers, wounded civilians, and even body bags being pumped into every American family's home on the evening news on a daily basis, encouraging empathy of the anti war movement and reflecting poorly on our own policies. But let's get back to the British invasion. And the peace symbol originated in Britain and designed in 58 to support the campaign for nuclear disarmament. However, it became iconic during the Vietnam War and even flown by American soldiers on the front lines. So, why and how did the British invasion's Doppler effect have such a significant impact on me as an American and global citizen? Despite the anti war movement it facilitated, I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force in 72, selecting Nam as my first assignment, but the closest I got was Thailand. And seeing the effects of an unpopular war on our troops and society, over 58,000 American deaths, and the political fallout and the subsequent conflicts America has involved in since has instilled in me a deep seated skepticism of our policies, prompting me to always dig deeper to discover the motives of our federal government, our agencies, and the influences of the American military industrial complex. I love America. It's still one of the best places to live, but even the best families have a few skeletons in the closet. So I've also attached the text of this video so the reader will have access to the songs and links of my sources. And thank you for your time.